Welcome to the Beautiful Step Podcast,
where we
run,
stomp,
tiptoe,
and tango into the confusing
but beautiful
world of togetherness. We are your hosts, Kris
and Charity.
Now, let's go make our together even better. Hey, babe.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. What are we talking about?
We are going to talk about trust today.
Oh.
You want to know why we're talking about trust today?
I can tell you have something up your sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Well, actually, I had something in my suitcase.
What? What are you talking about?
I was going to pack for a trip, and guess what I found in one of our suitcases?
What?
A condom.
A condom in our suitcase?
Mm-hmm.
It's not mine.
That's what they all say. But let's just back up here because a condom in the suitcase is kind of odd for us. I mean, married a long time. Let's just say that your driveway doesn't go all the way up to the house.
You mean like I'm fixed? So I don't need one?
And I was there when the excavator came in, and I was holding your hand and laughing the whole time.
Stop it.
So,
that was such an awful experience. If any guys have ever had a vasectomy, it's okay. True confession. Can I tell my vasectomy story? Should I?
Oh my God, you're really gonna?
Should I?
Okay.
So
this is like 21 years ago, 22 years ago.
right, and you have to understand that when you go get a vasectomy, they want you to be cleanly shaven, right? So they can do the surgery, and they kind of leave that up to you.
Is it vasectomy or visectomy?
I call it a vasectomy.
Okay, vasectomy.
Did I say vi?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know.
Anyway. So I'm thinking to myself, I don't want any blades anywhere near that area, right?
Yeah.
So I used an electric razor, and this was before the days of like manscaping.
Now all the men do not all the men, but
Well,
the men do the thing.
Right.
The clean.
Joe Rogan hadn't. He hadn't invented manscaping yet.
Oh.
So I don't think it was kind of. It was a little bit brute back then. So and the technology was different, and so I took my electric razor to that area, and let's just say it was a little rough. And I remember going in to it.
Do you remember that you had a female nurse?
Of course, I went into the room, and she's like, "Okay, let's get going," and I'm like, "Yeah, where's the guy that's gonna?" And she's like, "Oh no, go ahead, just pull your pants down and sit on here." And it was really. And what happened then is, so then I sit down, and I'm there for the world to see. And by the way, it's freezing cold in the room, and so that never plays well.
Only the men appreciate that.
And she took one look at what I had done to myself, and she was like, "Has a rat been down here chewing?" It was awful.
I can't believe you.
But you know what?
Story.
You know what? I did that for love.
You did?
Yes.
That, and I probably wouldn't have continued to have sex with you if you kept knocking me up. We had 3 kids in 4 years. So
I know, that's your problem. But I will say that, come on, that was something that built trust. I did that for you, baby.
You did do it for me.
Didn't I?
Yeah, you really didn't have a choice, but you did do it for
I
me.
did
And
do
I
it
was
for
there
you.
cheering you on the whole time.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty funny story. But
So yeah, sorry.
we were talking about the condom I found. Okay, so
yeah. So you find a condom.
I
in
find
your
a condom,
suitcase.
but you've already had a vasectomy, and it's 22 years ago. And okay, you could use a condom for not getting STDs. That makes sense, So when I see this condom in the bag and I'm trying to pack, I'm like, whoa, this is really interesting. And should I have concerns here? And then I'm thinking to myself, well, we're with each other pretty much all the time, and so I don't know when you would possibly be able to do that, but really more than that, I just kind of like used common sense and looked around the rest of the bag and was like, oh, I forgot we loaned this bag to someone else. And so their stuff was in it, like their flight manifest and their, like all their stuff.
Man.
But honestly, if it would have been somebody else that I hadn't been married to for 27 years and all the other things that we've just talked about, I think most women finding that would have, and the husband or partner who says like, it wasn't mine. I'd have been like, I call bullshit,
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So, but there's a reason that we're to the point where I can look at that and not freak out and go like, okay, let me be rational here and figure out why I'm not freaking out.
Right.
And it's because we built trust all these years.
Yeah, you trust me. And I can say to you, I mean, I can say, look, it's not mine. And I would say that you would trust that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd
it's
also verify.
Yeah, trust but verify, right? And so, yeah, and there was lots of, obviously in this situation, lots of verification.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
namely the, driveway not going to the garage. It's so big. It's so big. Like, why would I need that? But it's that hasn't always been that way. Like, it hasn't. We haven't always been able to just go like, oh.
Oh no. I mean, how many years? It took us so many years to build trust, and we're still always building trust. That's what relationships do.
Okay, so stop there. How do you define building trust? Like, what would you say? What is trust? How do you do it?
I think, and what we've kind of talked about before in our lives, is that I believe that trust gets built with good action over time.
Okay.
So lots of good action over a long period of time builds trust.
Right. And I would say trust is only built through extensions.
What do you mean by that?
You have to extend trust in order to build it. Like,
True.
It's risky.
Yes.
Right? Like, if you're not willing to extend trust, you'll never.
Before it's deserved.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, you just have to, which is part of getting your heart broken or, living with an imperfect person. And,
yeah.
That's the hard part is it's just you have to extend trust in order to build it.
So you're saying you build trust by extending it.
Right.
I'm saying you build trust with good action over time. It's probably both.
I think it's both because on the giving side of it, you're extending it, right? And you're never going to actually – you need to be able to tell yourself, I'm extending trust here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is risky, but I'm extending trust. And then whoever you're extending it to, their play in that is good action over time, and then you build it.
Right.
If I'm extending it, or if you're extending it to me, then it's my turn to do good action over time because I'm –
Right. I think I understand what you're saying.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So let's go back to when we were very first married or even dating and like how we started building trust, because
you're so reluctant to extend trust, I think.
Oh my goodness.
Early on.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So
it's a wait and see. It's a like you're.
Yes, it's wait and see all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, can I trust this person with this? I don't even know. And then little things happen and you're not quite sure.
Right.
And so the reason I said good action over time is because I think if I was to classify trust at the beginning of a relationship, any relationship, it doesn't even have to be like a, love relationship. It could be business relationship or anything else. I would say trust starts with a contract. It's like contractual at the beginning, which means I'm going to do what I'm going to do if you do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
Right. And so.
And as soon as you don't do what you say,
I'm off the hook.
Yeah, as soon as you don't do what you say you're going to do, that gives me permission to not have to do anything I say I have to do.
Exactly. So it's like very contractual at the very beginning, I feel like. And for us, we would go into things and we'd be like, okay, you have these wedding vows. Wedding vows are very contractual. Like,
oh, yeah.
I mean, honestly, they say like, I'll love you for better or for worse and all that. But honestly, if the other person didn't say them back, would that person still be standing there at the altar? Probably not. So it's like this, like it starts out as this contractual thing of like, I don't know what we can expect of each other, but we need to build according to that. So what do you think the things were you didn't trust me in at the beginning?
It was simple. It was very simple. I mean, you're a very trustworthy person. You hadn't ever swore. You've never said a swear word. You never drank alcohol. I think I got you to smoke a clove or something, and that was so rebellious.
Dude, cloves were big back in the 90s, yeah.
Oh, man. Anyway, so my big thing for you, I didn't think you were going to ever step out on me, and you barely ever lie, right?
Barely ever.
Barely ever.
No, I never lie. I've never lied.
And so for me, it was just, I didn't think you were all in. I thought that you wanted to be married more than you wanted to be married to me. Like
I think that's valid.
You wanted to be married. You wanted to have this like, oh, I get to now have this perfect little life. And
it
this
was
marriage.
like a check the box.
Yep, you checked the box, man. It was a list thing for you. Like, and so that was like, I just don't trust. Like, if it came down to it and we were on the edge of a cliff or whatever, you'd be like, oh, sorry, boy, you got to go. Like, you know what I mean? It just, it was kind of, you were in it for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought.
And I had a hard time seeing that. Because remember, I always think back to the Chips Ahoy story.
I love Chips Ahoy especially when I was coming up, like when I was young.
So here I am trying to be this good wife, and like
you were trying really hard.
I was trying really hard. I was really young, and so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to the grocery store, babe. What treat do you want me to get you at the grocery store?
Blue Chips Ahoy.
Not blue cookies, but in the blue package.
The blue package Chips Ahoy.
They taste terrible. They're like hard. Anyway,
in milk, a blue packaged Chips Ahoy cookie is the bomb.
Okay.
Dizzle,
All
I think
right.
is the vernacular.
Okay. So you asked me for the Chips Ahoy. So I run down my list and I'm like, but then I get to the grocery store and I'm like, they're having a sale on reduced fat Chips Ahoy.
They're in a red package.
They had just come out and they were like soft and reduced fat. And
they're puffy. And they didn't have sugar or something?
I was like, and in my mind, I was like, score. I get to say that I got them Chips Ahoy, but we're not going to get fat eating them. And they're soft, and I don't like crunchy cookies.
If you put that cookie in milk, it doesn't absorb it. It's like a piece of rubber.
Okay, but you're missing the point. So I brought them home, and
I was so mad.
I was like all excited. I'm like, he's going to be happy because I got what he wanted, but then better. Right? But it was not better for you. It was better for me.
Exactly. And that was what I said to you at that point. I was like, you did not buy me Chips Ahoy. You bought you and your marriage image thing, Chips Ahoy. Like, I keep saying Chips Ahoy. I love it.
Ahoy.
Ahoy. But you did. You bought it for yourself.
So you were right, and it was absolutely true. Like
you see that now.
I see that now.
In the moment, 27 years later.
In the moment, it was really hard to see. But honestly, I think what you're saying, though, you weren't really trusting that I was all in it. And little actions like that,
oh, dude,
were kind of undermining. Like, are you really in it for me? And you'll get what I want instead of just what you want to check off the box.
Right.
And for you, we had this ongoing battle because you were a smoker. When
coming into the
met you. Yeah. And not a big smoker, but you'd smoke a couple cigarettes a day or something. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, okay, well, you probably smoked more than that. I don't know.
Yeah. Why are cigarettes so good? I don't know. Why did God make cigarettes? I don't
think God made cigarettes.
He did.
Well, I don't know. Anyway, so we were like, okay, you're going to stop smoking. So we were like, okay, Kris is going to stop smoking. That was the assumption. And then it was like, when you would sneak a cigarette or something, I would get so mad because I was like, you're not trustworthy.
Because I'm breaking this trust. Right. In my mind, I'm like, I'm only smoking like on my way to work. And I'm not even smoking at lunch or at night or anything like that. So I'm like, heck yeah, dude, I'm stepping up to the plate. I'm being a married man. I'm pretty much quit smoking. You know, I'm eating stinking red box Chips Ahoy. You know what I mean? And so in my mind, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
I'm all in here.
Well, okay. So this brings back what I was saying about like, it's good action over time, because what happens in contracts is if you don't decide on what good action is, one or the other person is going to be like, you broke your bargain. You broke that side of it. And I was always feeling like you're breaking that side of it. And you're like, what are you talking about? I have good action. And in my mind, I was like, that's not good enough action.
Right. And I'm like, well, who says what?
And it was the same thing. I'm like, well, I did the right action by buying the Chips Ahoy. And you're like, well, that wasn't good enough. I wouldn't call that good action.
Right.
So I think what we're saying is when you're at the beginning of any relationship, it's contractual. You're like basically trying to figure out, let's define what good action is, and then let's play it out over time.
Right. And you're like, there's this underlying assumption, I know for us, especially when you're when you're young and you don't trust yet, there's this underlying, like, I don't know if they have good intentions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're like, I think you have this weird, everybody's out to get me thing.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the hard part is you lean really hard on this person really has bad intentions. And it's so hard to actually build trust in that, inner universe.
That's why which goes to what you were talking about. Like, you have to extend even before they're really trustworthy.
Exactly. And that's why I say, like, trust can only be built through like legitimate extensions.
So you're saying like extension in your mind would be like, okay, I'm not really deserving of this, but I'm going to assume that Charity is going to do the right thing here.
Absolutely.
That's an extension.
Right.
And then when I do the right thing, we're building underneath that bridge.
Right. Yeah. We start to trust our hearts, start to trust our intentions and stuff like that. But I would say this, when it comes down to it, sometimes you have to clarify.
Yeah.
Like you have to go, okay, wait a minute. What are we agreeing on here?
Yeah.
What's good action look like?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
That, for you to go to the store, the only thing that's really going to make my heart just melt is blue packaged Chips Ahoy. Like, you can't bring home pecan sandies or like some.
Right. Yeah. And that just comes with time.
That's good action.
Yeah.
And for you needed to hear, no. Like, not one cigarette a day. Like, you got to quit smoking totally.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well,
or we both agree that like you reducing it down to 1 is good enough for now.
Exactly.
Like that's still good action if we've agreed upon that.
Right.
So it's this contractual thing.
Right.
But the extension of that, what you're saying is like you're extending a little bit at a time. And when it's proven, you're building the stability underneath it.
Absolutely.
Which then...
I love this tool. I love this tool because I know so many guys, so many women who have just totally screwed up.
Yeah.
Royally.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you're like, wait, not all is lost, because the beautiful thing about trust is that you can actually build it.
Yes.
You can build it. You can rebuild it. You can continue to build it. You can stay in that contractual if you want, if that's your weird sadomasochist, strange, like you hate your life.
Or that's where you're at.
Or that's just where you're at. Yeah. I mean, you can totally live like that if you want to, like basically living with a cop. But if you want to build trust and get to a point where it's much more concrete, that's just freedom to me.
Where you feel like the bridge has been built, it's undergirded. So when you say concrete, it's like becoming more stable.
Yeah, and the reason why I think concrete might be a kind of a cool word here is because concrete takes a while to set. Like,
yeah,
it goes off for a while. You don't just like instantly have concrete. It takes a long time to cure.
Yeah. So what happens, and we have experienced this in our marriage, and we have lots of friends that have experienced this, when somebody takes the dynamite and blows up the bridge at some segment.
Right.
And I think the thing that you're saying is all is not lost. You don't have to tear down the whole bridge, but you probably are going to have to go back and rebuild from the area that it broke.
Of course. You can't, that's the thing I love about what you're saying about good action over time, because they're not mutually exclusive. You can't just have one. You can't just have a really long time with being with someone.
Yes.
So
who has bad actions.
Yeah,
like, well, you're still
you've had a condom in your bag every weekend, dude. Like,
and
for
no one
17 years.
No one borrowed our suitcase.
Yeah, that's just because we've been together for 17 years doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you have the good action, right, that goes with it, of course, then there's also that whole like.
And you can't just have good action, because
that's what I'm saying.
Like you can. This was one of the pitfalls of our early marriage, is like, well, you should just automatically trust me because I did the right thing one time. And it's like, well, wait a second, that doesn't work either. And so
it's like me going like taking, like if I were guilty of having the condom, it would be like me taking the condom and holding it up and going, watch, and throwing it in the trash. And then you'd be going like, oh yeah, now I can trust you. Yes.
Sold. Yeah.
So good action. It's good action, but it has to be over time.
Yes. Yeah. And it has to be extended when you haven't gotten to that place yet.
Exactly. And that's what I love about this idea, or this, I think I would call it a truth, because that's the way that we've seen it work. But I love it because you can tell yourself in those times, we're in a building phase.
Yes.
We're just in a building phase. We're taking steps.
You can agree what the building phase and the steps are.
Absolutely.
So
Why
that
not?
you can celebrate when you're actually making progress.
100%. It's basically like, everybody's imperfect. That's the thing. And so I think there's this weird notion, okay? So let's just say like you start out sort of contractual or whatever, and then trust starts to solidify. It gets more concrete.
Yeah.
And I like concrete because it does take a time to cure, but it's something stable. Like you can walk on it. You can trust it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I think that's what we have. We have this like, no, I trust your intentions. Most of the time when something happens, it's a misunderstanding. It's, a miscommunication. It's not, villainizing you and being like, still taking you to that place where it's like, oh yeah, she never did love me, None of that. Like we don't have that.
Right.
Because we built this beautiful, I believe, concrete trust. But then it goes into this weird, like, complete trust. People think, like, at some point you're just going to completely trust.
That does not.
Do you think that happens?
No, I don't think that ever happens. Well, I think it does if you belong to a cult and are brainwashed. Or are, I mean, I just think it's one of those things where it's like you said, another human is fallible.
Yeah.
And like, we're never going to have complete trust where it's like, you could never, ever harm me. Well, I'm sorry, that's not realistic.
Right.
But do I believe that you would ever intend to harm me? No. But
Right.
could you harm me? Yeah.
Right. It's like, it's one of those situations where you see the guy's in jail. All the evidence points to the fact that he, killed all these people or whatever. And he has this wife who comes in and is like, I know you didn't do it. And everybody who's watching is like, dude is guilty. Like, I mean, that's the whole, like, and no one wants to be that, right? No one wants to.
Right.
Unless, hey, if you want to go ahead and do that somehow,
be brainwashed, or
I don't feel like that's healthy. And I don't feel like it actually, we talked at one point where you have this, you want someone that you can contend with, like you want your partner to be someone that like you can actually grow with.
Yeah. Stretching each other. Yeah.
You're stretching each other and stuff like that. I think that's what it's way more healthy to have like trust but verify than it is to just be like, yes, ma'am, I trust everything you know.
Yeah.
Because you don't grow in a relationship like that.
No. And it doesn't allow for the humanity of people, which is just undeniable. It's just
imperfect.
The way it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're all going to screw up,
right.
And that's okay, because this is a building process.
Absolutely.
There is no perfection in this. It's a journey. It's a process. And it's a tool. I like how in our lives we've used this as a tool.
We were, we started out really young and dumb. And the reason why I would say dumb, because we were dumb. Okay. Mm-hmm. Is because we just didn't have the tools.
No, we didn't know.
We had no way to process things like this.
So you would say the tool for this is, the tool for trust is...
tool time. Let's go tool time.
Tool time.
Tool time.
Is that in a relationship, any type of relationship,
yes.
You're going to start out at that contractual phase.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to decide and extend trust a little bit.
Yes.
It's kind of like, I see it, because I'm a business person, I think in like terms of like, okay, well, if I've used a realtor 1 or 2 times, I'm going to read the documents really, really carefully and make sure that they didn't screw something up.
Right.
Any profession, right? But if I've used that same person 20 times, then I'm going to be like,
where do I sign?
Yeah, like I'm not going to read this paperwork very much. I'm going to assume that you knew your stuff, because all these years I know, like, right. You know your stuff.
That's concrete, baby.
Right. So that's where we've gotten to in marriage is it's like, I'm going to assume that you're doing the right thing and you're going to keep doing the right thing. And like, we have the right intentions and we have the better, the other person's best interest at mind. And right. That's where it gets concrete. Is it ever going to be complete trust? No, probably not. Mm-mm. But I think this is as close as we get.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so the tools for me would be, you're going to start out with a little bit of that contractual stuff to the degree that you feel like your heart is able to extend trust. I think you go a lot faster. I think you are a lot happier
when you extend.
When you start to extend, and you just, you get out of cop phase, and then from there you get, concrete trust. And I feel like that is just a really beautiful place. And the biggest piece of this tool is if you blow it, or let's just say when you blow it, you can rebuild it.
You can.
That's the beautiful thing. It can be a long haul. Mm-hmm. It may not be a Chips Ahoy problem.
Because now you got bad action over some time.
Right.
Right? You've added it a little bit in the mix there.
Absolutely. And so I know, but I think that's probably the most liberating thought to me is that, no, you can go back into a trust building phase, and then you guys can say, we're in a trust building phase right now. This is why I'm asking you. I love you, but I'm asking you these questions because we're still building right now.
And what you're saying about extension is that when you're in the mode of extension, it's really important to actually recognize that trust is being extended for the person,
because it's vulnerable.
For the person extending it to say, like, I don't feel totally comfortable, but I'm going to trust you in this. It's important to acknowledge that. Right. And it's important to acknowledge that for the person who is getting the trust extended to them, that they know what's happening in there. Like, I know you're trusting me in this, so I'm going to prove it to you, kind of a thing.
Right.
Those are really healthy acknowledgments to have. And then the rejoicing when you actually pull it off and build trust.
Right. Because if not, you're working on assumptions.
Yeah.
And, everybody's trying to read everybody's mind,
Mm-hmm.
and that never works. And not only that, but you think you're giving way more than the other person. And the other person's like, the other person who's doing the good action is like, man, I'm really putting myself out here. I'm really, I'm really trying. And then, the one that's extending is like, man, I'm really, I'm leveraging myself. I'm really vulnerable. Like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? And so that's why I think it's so important in those moments of trust rebuilding time to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
To
Totally.
say, hey, like you just said, I'm extending here. Hey, I'm rebuilding here. I'm
Yeah.
feeling good. And then you guys are both mutually saying, we're in a building phase.
Right.
Super healthy.
Good. All right. Good stuff. We got tools on trust.
Okay. Wait, babe, wait. How do we end this?
By saying thank you.
Okay, you guys are awesome. Thank you. There's nothing more encouraging than you hitting that like button and commenting.
And don't forget to subscribe.
And I know there's more. You have a list. Might as well go down the list.
Right. Okay. Watch the video of this podcast on our Beautiful Steph YouTube channel or on our website where you can actually download transcripts and show notes of the episode. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
If today's episode made your together even better, tell someone.
Okay. Now.
Right now.
Today.
Okay.
You can take one step
It's just one step.
toward the beautiful relationship you want in your life.
You got this.